Well, welcome everybody. My name is Ken Anderson. I'm the Dean of the School of Business at Gonzaga, and I want to welcome you to a special edition, if you will, of Mondays at Noon, and that's our Careers in Marketing program. Many of you are familiar with our Careers series. It's something we started many years ago in finance, and we have extended it out to most, if not all, of the other disciplines, something that happens usually once a year. And our Careers in Marketing event has always been a really popular one with great guests and good conversation. So one reminder before you get started, we are recording this and it will be available on our YouTube site once after a couple of days, once it's over. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Lotta Kirpus, who has done a wonderful job of bringing this together. And again, thank you all for being here with us today.
Thank you for your kind words, Dr. Anderson, and thank you for the opportunity that the Mondays at Noon provided us with a platform for all of us to get together today. So without much ado, let me introduce to you our esteemed guest speakers who, let me remind you, all of them are Gonzaga alumni. All of them have studied, marketing at some point in their careers, and now they are coming to generously kind of share with us, based on their expertise and experiences over those years. So let me introduce to you Alex Bobovsky. She works now as an account director of MDG Advertising, and she hails from Boca Raton, Florida. So speaking of another significant time difference, right? Blessings Mushala. He is telecommuting from the furthest away distance, so he takes the prize today because he is a principal of a company that he founded himself, right? So he will tell us more about it, hopefully, in a few short minutes. And he's connecting from Lusaka, Zambia. He has a bachelor's degree and an MBA degree from Gonzaga. Well, bachelor's degree from another institution, but MBA degree from Gonzaga. Greg Ong, senior supply management analyst, works for Nike by You, as opposed to just Nike. I'm sure, and I'm eager, as I'm sure everyone else is in this room, to find out how Nike by You is different from the Nike that we know. And he's connecting from the vicinity of Portland, Oregon, right? And now Xochitl Velazque, she actually can boast both undergraduate and MBA degrees from Gonzaga University, and she now works as assistant director of Washington Apple Education Foundation, and she is connecting from Wenatchee, Washington. So we have really a wide range of different expertise areas presented today. And I want to start with maybe a traditional question to our guest speakers. Could you please tell us a bit about yourself? What do you do now, and what actually brought you to your current career position? Maybe you could even talk about some of the earlier career choices, how they influenced your sort of professional journey.
Sure. I mean, I can start.
That would be great, Alex.
So I'm originally from Yakima, Washington. So I'm from the Pacific Northwest. My senior year of college, I went out to New York City for spring break, actually, for the first time, and absolutely fell in love with the city. So when I got back, I really made it my mission to want to move out to the East Coast. I've always grown up on the West Coast. I wanted a different change of scenery. I knew I wanted marketing and advertising, and New York has a lot of big name brands and companies based out of there. So when I returned back to campus, I pretty much emailed maybe 30 to 40 different marketing agencies out in New York, just anybody who was willing to talk to me, any job openings that were available, just to kind of figure out where I needed to start to get out there. And this one lady actually emailed me back and said, I actually have an employee who went to Gonzaga, and I would love to connect you, and you can just talk to him about opportunities and how he landed in New York and whatnot. So it ended up him offering me a paid internship at his company in New York for the summer. So I moved out to New York maybe 3 or 4 weeks after I graduated. He helped set me up with internship housing at Columbia University, and I worked for his marketing agency for the summer. And then I got hired at another full-time agency. So I went from a more smaller company when I first moved out there to a 500 employee advertising agency, primarily working on the BMW national account. So a lot of very big budgets, celebrities, commercials, really fun and cool, exciting stuff. My husband got a job based out in South Florida. So we ended up moving down to South Florida. So when I was looking for new opportunities, I was really wanting to stay within the realm of what I was currently doing. South Florida has a much different marketing environment than New York City does. But I ended up going to a smaller marketing agency that's still 360 full service, but they end up specializing in healthcare, multi-locational healthcare companies, which very different than what I was used to in New York, but also a very interesting industry to get into, especially over the course of this past year. So I am currently an account director here at MDG Advertising. I oversee 5 other account executives and junior account executives on my team, working with urgent cares and dermatology clinics, just different national brands.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alex. And I think out of modesty, Alex didn't mention that this large company that she worked for was J.W. Thompson, right?
Yes.
So people in the know, they will be like, wow, big name.
Yeah.
So, and thank you so much for kind of along the way sharing some career tips probably for the current Zags who are applying. Blessings, would you please tell us, because, I try to keep the intrigue so that, you can tell us firsthand about your foray into entrepreneurship, right? Where you started your own company, and what did you do prior to that?
Right, so I got my bachelor's degree in computer engineering, and I worked at a computer chip company. And, I was the engineer in the cubicle doing all the coding. But I liked the idea of my manager who had an MBA. He would come in and tell us about the new trends and what the clients were looking for. So I wanted to be that guy. So I left that position and came to Gonzaga to do my MBA. And while I was at Gonzaga, I got the emphasis on entrepreneurship. That was my emphasis. So in the back of my mind, I knew that, I do want to one day become an entrepreneur. So since I left Gonzaga in 2011, when I graduated in April, I've always called myself a theoretical entrepreneur. I went on to work as a sales executive for an agricultural equipment company here in Zambia. It was a multi-million-dollar supply company in terms of revenue. So it was a big agricultural inputs, agricultural equipment. I did that for a couple of years. And then I joined the nonprofit organization. I became a country director for a nonprofit organization called I Am Zambia. It's based out of the US, but it does a lot of humanitarian projects out here. So I did that for a while, just different humanitarian things like clinics and schools in rural areas. But during that time, I started, I just got a license with the Department of Immigration in Zambia to practice as an immigration consultant. So I hired 2 people while I had the full-time job. And then just recently, I left that full-time job. Now I am full-time at Katuba Business Solutions. Primarily, we're an immigration consulting firm But we do a lot of business consulting, especially for investors that are coming into Zambia. There's a lot of Asian investors that are setting up shop in the mining sector and the construction sector. So we've broadened up. Not only do we do immigration consultancy now, I have 3 employees right now. We do business consulting as well. And there are other things that we're looking at setting up right now. And so that's been my journey from the engineering side to realizing the dream of becoming an entrepreneur.
Thank you so much. So even, though the name of your company kind of might deceptively sort of make you think that you've only focused on immigration side of it, in reality, marketing plays a huge role, I assume, in what you're doing, right? In the services you actually provide to investors.
Yes, it does. Now we're a regulated industry, so a lot of our marketing is done because it's regulated with the licenses that we get. But yes, marketing plays a very crucial role. But interesting enough, the best sort of marketing that happens in our industry is our reputation and our past clients. So we tend to get a lot of business from clients that we've worked with, those experiences. More than on the regulated side, where the Department of Immigration has put us on a website and people have to call in and check to see that we've got these licenses. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm sure it's exciting to be at this forefront of one of the fastest growing markets, because from that little that I know, the real frontier of the fast growth now has shifted from Asia to Africa, and some of the fastest growing dynamic markets that are out there are in Africa, and Zambia is one of them, right?
That's right. Yeah, we actually, this may sound bad, but yeah, we sometimes tell our clients, because we want to do a good job, but you're right, there's an influx right now. And and people are bringing a lot of investments, especially in the mining, agricultural, and construction industries. But yes, there is a big boom right now from Asia, China especially, but mostly from Asia. Some Europe, some US, but mostly from Asia.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Greg, and could you please now share with us, like, what brought you to Nike, especially Nike by you, that sort of mysterious part of the company name that I cannot figure out yet?
Sure. Yeah, so I graduated from Gonzaga in 2016 with a bachelor in biology and then a promotion minor. And I guess a little backstory there, I thought I wanted to go into the medical field, or my dream was to be an ophthalmologist originally. And I interned one summer and kind of realized that wasn't my passion, or it wasn't where I could see myself after school. And so I did some, I guess, reflection or thinking and just trying to figure out, like, what gets me excited to wake up every morning? Where do I want to go every day when I go to work? And eventually I landed on Nike for a lot of different reasons. And so I made a pivot junior year and I added that promotion minor, if anything, just to get my mindset more in line with what I thought Nike represented, and make sure that I had those skills set up. And really the last 2 years of my time at Gonzaga was really focused on networking. I took full advantage of everything that Gonzaga had to offer through the Career Center, through the alumni network, just meeting with as many people as I could during that time. And I was super lucky. Part of it was timing, part of it was, I like to think some of my hard work paid off. I got a job offer right before graduating. And so I took a couple months off after school to travel, and then I started in Nike by You in July of 2016. And Nike by You is formerly known as Nike ID, so maybe some people are more familiar with that name. Part of the website where you can go online and customize your shoe, pick different colors for different parts of the shoe. You can put your name on the shoe. It's all about what we try to focus on is allowing consumers to tell their own story through Nike product, a personal story that they can speak to. And so we have a lot of individual consumers that come on and customize their own shoes, but we also have kind of like a corporate side of the business where we have businesses that want team shoes, or we have universities like the Gonzaga basketball team, a lot of their shoes that are custom for our school colors with Go Zags on the tongue that comes from Nike by You. So a lot of cool things that we're working on. I started on the data entry side. It's kind of like an entry level role, like most roles at Nike. And it was kind of it was like you kind of have to prove yourself for the first year and show the value that you add, especially at a big company like Nike. And then after a year, they kind of evaluate you. And if there's budget for you, then they'll bring you on permanently full time. So I busted my butt for a year, and that opened up a lot of doors. After a year, I moved over to the strategy side of Nike by You. So I worked with a lot of people that are way smarter than me, thinking about long-term planning for Nike. Where is footwear customization going to be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? And what are the key initiatives that we have to focus on to get there? And so I did a lot of the operational legwork to make that happen and to execute it. And then that got me a lot of exposure to various functions end to end to see how Nike makes product and puts it out into the marketplace. So I worked with like designers, creative people that are coming up with the shoes, all the way through to consumer facing, how is Nike marketing this product? And along that way, I got to see the manufacturing and supply chain side, which really caught my interest. Working with international people from Italy, China, Vietnam, working cross-culturally was super interesting to me. Getting the opportunity to travel and work with people from different backgrounds. And so I made that shift 2 years ago into the role that I'm in now, which is senior supply management. I basically take inputs from all these various functions, like how many pairs do we think we're going to sell? What colors are going to sell the best? What are we marketing the most? And I send those inputs over to our factory partners in Asia and Italy, and make sure that we have the labor, the machinery, the materials, the time, everything that's needed to basically bring that marketing plan to life in the marketplace. And yeah, I've been at Nike for about 5 years now. I think I'm the youngest grad on the panel today, so a little fresher.
Thank you so much. This is fantastic. How does it feel to be kind of a part of managing a global supply chain during the pandemic and kind of early recovery? I'm sure you have some war stories to share with us, right?
It's interesting just to see like the waves of the impact. I think when it first started, we had to shut down our factory partners in China, mainly in China, also in Vietnam a little bit. While we were still in America, like everything was going on like normal. I don't think we realized what was going to happen. But we weren't producing any shoes like in February of last year. And then when things started to go crazy here in March, that was when our factory started opening up again. And so it was interesting just to see the waves of the impact throughout the world. But it's interesting now, it's like our factory partners there are living their normal lives. They don't necessarily have to wear masks when they go out. They're going out for dinner all the time, and they're kind of laughing at me now or laughing at us here. We're a little behind, I think. So it's interesting to see how it moves through the world.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's definitely, somebody will make exciting studies of like different approaches throughout the globe, over the globe, kind of handling pandemic, and sort of, hopefully we can all learn useful lessons. And if there's next time, God forbid there's next time, we'll handle it all better with that experience. Thank you. Xochitl, could you please tell us now about, your post-Gonzaga experience?
Hi, yeah. So I graduated from Gonzaga in 2012 with my bachelor's in business, and I focused in marketing, finance, and international business. And then after, I wasn't ready to leave Gonzaga. I really enjoyed it, so I decided to stay and do my MBA. And after I graduated, I used more of the finance part of my degree. So I worked for a property management firm in Spokane for a few years. But I've always been very close to my family. I come from a small family, so it's just my younger brother and I. So after a few years, I decided I wanted to come back home to Wenatchee. So Wenatchee, small town in central Washington, where I grew up. So that's kind of what brought me back into the area. And when I first got back, I worked in banking. So personal lending, it was great to help, community members with, financial needs and stuff like that, and also educate some of our younger audiences in the Hispanic or Spanish speaking community in the area. So that was really fun. But then about 2 years ago, I was approached by our executive director at the foundation I work for now, to take, to be part of the team as assistant director. So I was really excited to jump on. I first became aware of the Washington and Apple Education Foundation, which we refer to as WAIF for short, because it is a mouthful. But I first became familiar with it when I was a senior in high school. So that's when I applied for a scholarship through the foundation. So WAIF is a nonprofit organization located in Wenatchee, but it serves all of central Washington. So to Tonasket down to like the Walla Walla area, providing financial assistance and high school scholarship training for students in that area. So I was awarded a scholarship that was a big impact in my life because that's how I was able to go to Gonzaga. So after I graduated, I still was involved with them as a volunteer, but that involvement definitely increased when I came back into the area. And like I said, jumping on their team was really fun. We are a small staff of 4, so it's small, but it's very fun in the sense that I get to work with, different things throughout the year. So most of my work focuses on the student stewardship side. So providing those resources to our existing students. Students can renew their scholarship for up to 4 years of undergraduate studies. So definitely building that relationship with them, but also communicating their stories to our donors and our community, which is, how we can raise those funds to continue funding their education and providing support for them throughout their college experience.
Thank you so much, Xochitl. I personally think this is an absolutely, exciting story of like truly paying it forward, right? At some point, you became a beneficiary of a scholarship from Apple Foundation, and now you are, making sure that, new generations of, kind of students have this, wonderful educational opportunity. So thanks. So now I think even though I know a little bit more about our guest speakers and know that each of them has been absolutely super modest about their achievements. So they told us actually less than what they actually achieved in their lives. But you already have a feel that, we have really outstanding group of alums kind of with us today. So I would like to maybe continue with a few questions that I prepared for them, and then we'll make sure that at the end of that sort of process, we set aside, maybe 15, 20 minutes, so approximately a third of that time should go into the kind of students generated questions. Okay, so how about this as a plan? First, maybe a softball question, hopefully. Coming to your alma mater is always, in my opinion, has a feel of a family reunion. So it's time for the memories and reflections. So what is your kind of warmest, best, sort of most pleasant kind of memory of Gonzaga? What's your best experience at Gonzaga? And I don't know if you would like to go kind of in the same order.
Sure. So I would have to say mine obvious, well, not obvious, I have a lot, but I would say Gonzaga in Florence was definitely one of the highlights of my college education, just being able to be over there for a semester, studying abroad in different cultures, getting to travel and explore the world. I had a focus on international business as well. So just being able to see how that translated to different countries and cultures was definitely one of my biggest highlights.
Yeah, I have a couple as well, but I'd have to say my involvement in the new venture lab. I was a project manager for one of the projects we did in the new venture lab. And we took part in the CFA Global Investment Research Challenge. So I was a team leader. We had a few undergrads on the team, and we actually made the finals. So we were finalists. We didn't win, but we were finalists. So that's a memorable experience I remember at Gonzaga.
Thank you. So you would advise, especially kind of younger students, right, to take advantage of this opportunity while they're here.
Yes. Yeah, because they gave us a community mentor. I forget his name, but he was a retired gentleman from Raton. And so he brought this wealth of his, corporate experience into this competition as we were writing this business plan. And I thought that was a good experience and good exposure as well.
Thank you.
I have a couple. One, more just a funny story. When I was a senior in high school and I was still deciding what school I wanted to go to, it was like down to the last weekend when we had to make the decision, and I spontaneously decided to drive up. I'm from Portland area, so I drove up to Spokane to visit and follow around one of my friends from high school who was going to Gonzaga. And I just remember walking behind College Hall, and it was super sunny, the weather was perfect, and all of a sudden DeSmet started playing Call Me Maybe super loud. I don't know if that's beyond this generation now, that song, but that was just like, at the time, was just an incredible song. I mean, it's still an incredible song, and everyone was so happy, singing along, dancing, just hanging out on the quad. And I just remember being like, wow, this place is insane. Like, this is somewhere that I want to spend my time. And now when I think back, like, that initial experience that I had at Gonzaga was pretty indicative of how the next 4 years would go. So just like a super warm initial impression that I had. But more like on the experience side, I think for me, my senior year, I took marketing 490 with Dr. LaRosse. It was called Promotion Project, I believe. That was like the best class that I took at Gonzaga. And that was my last semester of senior year. And when I was interviewing at Nike, a lot of my answers to the interview questions came directly from that class. And because the way that it's set up, it's just like basically an internship for a class. And so that had probably the biggest impact on me as a student. And I was just super grateful for that opportunity.
Wow, this is a very special memory. We don't have Dr. LaRosse with us right now because she's delayed with her responsibilities to a nonprofit that she helps with, but we'll make sure that she hears this story about this, strong impact. Xochitl, what about you? What's your warmest, nicest memory of Gonzaga?
Yeah, so I think like the rest of the panelists, there's, a few, but one of the ones that, sticks with me all the time is being part of the Bridge program. So it's a pre-orientation program where the students get to go to campus a week early and kind of tour campus. And similar to Greg, I think just that welcoming aspect of being on campus, having that community, and then just building some of those lasting friendships that I was able to go through college, with these students and then still keep in touch with them after. So I think that's one of the ones that sticks with me the most.
Thank you. So are you kind of still staying in touch with the same group of people, right?
With some of them, yes.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Well, and maybe like really switching kind of the modality, what was then your greatest challenge at Gonzaga? I know it's maybe a tougher question, but like, what was it? Did you successfully overcome that challenge? If yes, how did you do that? So which message basically can you send to current students? Like, if they're facing similar challenge, they should not fear, because it's, is it something that can be overcome? And maybe like to switch because so that Alex doesn't have to start, every time. Blessings, do you mind kind of being the first speaker this time?
All right. Yeah. Well, I think for me, as an engineering student in undergrad, I was kind of, when I look back, I was just pretty much memorizing, the material. So I think I wasn't learning, even though there's a lot of practical steps to it. So the challenge for me when I got to Gonzaga was, you couldn't just, and I tried it my first, my first semester. and it didn't work. You know, the MBA program, I had about 2 years of experience, and in my opinion, you know, I wish I had more. And so my biggest challenge was I can't just, you know, textbook it. You know, I need to relate it to something. So that was my biggest challenge initially, and just the style of learning from my undergrad, you know, to just memorizing stuff and then repeating it in an exam to actually internalizing it. So I had to switch from my undergrad way of learning to my, you know, graduate school of learning. That was a bit of a challenge, but I'm glad I figured it out. You know, by the second semester, it was application now. So being involved in the different things added a lot of value to me and you know, my previous work experience as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You know, I want to second that, because my experience, you know, when I came to the United States was to the doctoral program. And even though I was transitioning from business to business, it was kind of experience of an international student going from one educational system to another. So there's definitely, you know, a moment of shifting gears when you have to figure out the way to learn. So I second Blessings. It's maybe some of the most difficult things to do, but once you did it, everything is just, you know, sails smoothly from that point on. And what Blessings just described is scientifically proven to be the best way, related to other things that mean to you, right? Build it into the network of your existing knowledge. That's the best way to learn. Mm-hmm. Greg, would you, you know, dare to share your greatest challenge? Thank you, Blessings.
Yeah, I had a hard time, especially in my last 2 years, just trying to balance wanting to enjoy and have fun the last 2 years, and then on the other side, feeling like a lot of probably self-imposed pressure to have a job lined up when I graduated, and feeling like if I didn't do that, then like, what am I doing with my life? Or like, I'm a failure. And so I had a hard time balancing those two. And I probably skewed on the latter side, where I put like as much energy as I could into making sure that I had a job offer. Probably to the point where if I look back now, like I think I missed out on a lot of things with my friends that I wish I would have taken advantage of. Like I didn't go to Vegas for WCC. I like came home to do interviews every long weekend I would come back and meet with people. And I don't think I would do it differently, because I'm proud of where it's gotten me. But I think if I were to think about it now, it's like, in my opinion, there's always going to be, I say this tentatively, there should always be a job that's ready for us when we graduate, especially with a Gonzaga degree. I think that holds a certain reputation or weight in the professional world, and a good impression that people have when they see you're from Gonzaga. And so I think it's fine to have fun. The last 2 years, I would tell myself just to have fun, because those 4 years, once they're over, it's kind of gone, and I miss those. And so I wish I would have taken more advantage of that time, and not put so much pressure on myself to have a job, because there's always going to be one at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. All right, but you know, your efforts definitely paid off, right? You're exactly where you want to be. So that's also kind of a message that
that's true. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Xochitl, how about you?
So I think one of my
greatest challenge.
I think one of my biggest challenges was my freshman year. So just going to college, being a first generation college student, that's very unfamiliar to my family, to myself. So it was very challenging, you know, leaving home and being away from home for extended periods of time. So that was a little bit challenging. I was able to come home. And I wish I hadn't so much my freshman year. I think there is so much to be involved with on campus, both extracurricular and with, you know, your program and your field of study. So definitely started coming less. The other years became more involved on campus and stuff. So I think that was my biggest one. But like I said, it was great to, as the years progressed, be more involved and take advantage of some of the great things and some great memories that you can build on campus.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks so much. Alex, and what about you?
I would say probably just overall figuring out what my major should be. You know, you come into college, there's a whole bunch of different changes, just living on campus and living away from your family and meeting a whole bunch of new people. And then all of a sudden you have to declare a major. And a lot of times you have to make that decision without any real world experience. You don't know what those types of jobs are, and you don't know if it's even of something of interest to you. I remember talking to one of my advisors, and they pretty much helped steer me into business, primarily because it cast a wide net of opportunity with a whole bunch of different types of jobs that you could get into. So I ended up in business primarily because of that. It wasn't anything like I wanted to work in advertising or I wanted to work in marketing. It just kind of fell in my lap. And then as I started taking more courses, it interested me. But that was probably my biggest challenge. And then to Greg's point, putting a lot of pressure on myself, feeling that I needed to have a job or an internship or a plan lined up, ready to go right after graduation. And I kind of sprung into that real world in 3 weeks after graduation, when some of my friends took the summer off, and then they started their jobs in September. And I do wish I wouldn't have put so much pressure on myself to have that lined up and make those decisions. For some reason, I thought that if I start a job, that's kind of going to be the industry or job that I'm going to have for many, many years. And my job has evolved over the past 9 years from doing one thing to another, just by connections and my different experiences.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much. I'm actually so glad that Alex said exactly those words in her response right now, because my next question that I always, wanted to ask you is, let's actually focus on what you do today. What did you do literally in your work on Friday of last week, or on your typical Monday, just in case if your Fridays, typically have a different workflow, from the rest of the week. So what do you do in your work?
I can go first. I'll speak to my last Thursday. Nike's nice on Fridays. They keep it pretty light. On Thursday, I have a long day on Thursdays, just in the nature of my work, working with people in multiple time zones in Italy and China. So I start Thursday mornings with an 8 a.m. call with our team in Italy, and then I end the day with a 6 p.m. call with our team in China and Vietnam. And then in the middle of that, there's lots of, at Nike, we do a lot of cross-functional meetings. So Thursdays, we have a big, it's called a launch readiness meeting. So basically we have all the functions come together, from brand, which is like our marketing team, our product team, digital team, strategy. I'm on the operation side, and we come together and we look at like the next 6 to 8 months of shoes that we're going to launch, and every function comes ready with an update on how they're tracking on what they own for that project or for that shoe. And basically it's a weekly check-in to make sure that everything's tracking on time to launch at the time that the marketing is planning to go live. And so there's a lot of meetings like that for me, where it takes a lot of either compromise or balance, or there's a lot of different competing priorities that are coming to these meetings, and figuring out a way to work together because we all have the same common goal. But we all own different parts of it, so there can be a lot of tension. So there's definitely a lot of teamwork and communication involved. And then like the actual, it's hard. Sometimes we have so many meetings, we can't actually do like the sit down hard analysis work that we need to do. So it's kind of in between the meetings, I'll go into Excel, or I use Tableau a lot for my work, and just go in and look at various metrics and data that I track from a factory perspective, like how many orders are we taking, how many shoes are we shipping, are they shipping on time, how long is it taking to ship, all these different metrics. And I'm running analysis to make sure that we're holding the factories accountable to basically the lead times and the quality that they need to be meeting. Yeah, I think that's probably like an average day, probably 4 to 5 Zoom meetings these days, with usually 20 plus people per meeting.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. Hey, strategy students, you always hear from me. Cross-functional coordination is a, signpost of, of a market-oriented company like Nike, right? You just got the proof. Thank you so much for helping me with this.
Yeah, that's just one more thing. That's why Marketing 490 was so helpful for me, because it was basically cross-functional work. in a class. And it's like an incubator for how my experience at Nike has been. So she has a very good point.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so Chi, how about you? What was your last sort of, typical work day?
Yeah, so last week was a little unique for me. I've been doing a lot of check-in calls for our students. So we have over 300. This month I've been focusing on our seniors. It has been a different and hard year for a lot of them. So just checking in and seeing how they're doing. But on a normal basis, it's a lot of event coordination. So both for our student events, a couple years ago, there was a shift on not only providing financial support for students, but also connecting them with other resources to helping them succeed after college. So a lot of that networking or other events that we think that will be beneficial to them. So a lot of that. And then on an ongoing basis, just the either online or social media posts and just information to our donors and things like that. So one of the fun things is talking to students, getting their testimonials and stuff, and then sharing that with our donors in our community. I think it's so great to be able to share those stories and see the kind of impact that they're having on these students. So a lot of that. So throughout the year, it's a little bit different. This year, we haven't been able to do as many in-person events, none at all actually so far, maybe toward the end of the year. So a lot of online event planning right now, but hopefully toward the end of the year, we can maybe have a little more in-person like we usually do.
I see. Thank you so much. Alex, how about you? How did kind of advertising industry transition to online experience?
Yeah, we were definitely a company that prided themselves on being in person and working collaboratively. So we weren't sure how this online thing would go. It actually has been very good, and we might not even go back to the office just because we've experienced really great communication across all of our teams and our clients. But a typical day in the life typically on Fridays, I hold a town hall essentially with my account team to just go over any projects that anybody is working on, make sure that people's bandwidth is not too crazy. If there's anybody who has a little bit of bandwidth, we might shift projects and priorities. And then we really use the time to expand on any learnings from the week. If somebody's working on something that they think may apply to somebody else's project, just explaining and talking through what they learned for the week to share that knowledge transfer with everybody. There's never a day that I don't talk to a client and sit in on client meetings. So lately, the hot topic of debate, obviously, in healthcare has been vaccines and offering vaccines to at a lot of our healthcare facilities. So I spent the day talking with the CEO and the chief marketing officer just on what that rollout is going to be across all of our marketing channels and what that end communication is going to be to the consumer. With this day and age and reviews and review solicitation, it's very important that our strategy really aligns with what we're rolling out from a business perspective, because people are very quick to criticize and critique their experience at certain places, especially when it comes to the vaccine front. So I'm more on the strategy side of things, and I work with the director of marketing to make sure that the strategic plan is in place, and then I have my team roll it out from a briefing and the creative standpoint, making sure updates are on the website, building out email streams, and reporting and all of that sort of stuff. So after a couple of those meetings, I'll sit in on some creative briefings, just getting the creative teams briefed in on other campaigns that we may be running for some clients. And then my company always ends Friday with a Friday happy hour. It's all Zoom, but just to be able to see everybody else in the company you may not talk to every week, and just to see how everyone's doing from all different departments and share anything that happened over the course of the week.
Wow, great. I'm sure that we'll hear great ideas, even coming kind of from that sharing of perspectives. Thank you. Blessings, how does your typical day look like? I mean, from the email communication, I already got a sense of like the first answer will be very busy. And I appreciate even more that you found time for us. But, can you give us an idea of what it looks like?
Right. Yeah. So we're operating on a stack basis right now. We try to do first in, first out. Most of our jobs are, request, and some are technical in nature. If it's so, one of our biggest clients is a nonprofit, but we do have some medium to large size companies as well. So we try to prioritize, the work as it comes. So typically, I start off the day with making sure everybody has their assignments for the day. And then we look on the technical side, those requests that we have. Some are bids that we have to send because it's a new bank or a new client. That's more on the technical side. Maybe I have to, do it personally. But some of the, the stuff that can be done, I just found that out. And then we interface with a lot of government agencies as well. Of course, the Department of Immigration, but the local embassies as well. So we interface with those. So sometimes it requires us to go there personally and interface with them. But a lot of what we do is online. Most of our submissions are online, but sometimes we do have to go in person and do them. So a typical day is emails in the morning, a few errands to, go to these places, a few meetings. Most of our meetings are in person. We're a small group, and where Lusaka is a smaller city, relatively speaking. So it's about 25-minute drive every direction, so we do those in-person meetings. And then we just try to end the day. My typical day ends at looking at the stack, what we accomplished this day and, what's the next thing we're gonna accomplish the next business day, which would be on Monday. But sometimes on the weekend, as a small business, we just try to deal with it, because it's online. So we can send applications during the weekend and then pick up from where we left. Yeah. But it is definitely, looking on the stack and seeing there's always something on there. But as far as on the marketing side, the pandemic helped us because we slowed down during the pandemic. Luckily, we still had work going on with this nonprofit organization that's our big client. But we started looking on the marketing side now and reaching out and sending emails and requests. So that was helpful for us. Before that, we were just almost firefighting, but just responding to the requests that we have.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. And, we do not have too much time left, but I want to really maybe invest last few remaining minutes for the students to give an opportunity to our students to ask their questions. Okay, Max, it looks like you're the first one. Yeah, I hope you can also see hand raised electronically. Yeah. So please.
Hi, well, let me lower my hand. Okay, I'm trying to see where everyone is. Okay, hi. So I kind of have a question. I think this kind of pertains to both Greg or Alex. Is it Alex or Alexandra? Do you prefer?
Alex is fine.
Alex, okay. So I am a Greg, I relate. I'm a current biology major and business major. And I guess my question for Greg is, what have you used from your biology degree, whether that be indirectly or directly, like whether it's, studying or something? And do you feel like it benefited you by standing out in the business community? Because it's not a common degree to have in business. And Alex, you mentioned that you worked with dermatologists. As a bio major, I kind of want to combine biology and business in some form. And I'm definitely interested in the medical side and marketing things. So if you could expand on that. So maybe Greg first and Alex second, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. That was something that I struggled with a lot too when I was trying to get into Nike, and probably had a little bit of worry or insecurity that I wouldn't be able to get in because of my degree. I think at Nike, I can't speak for other companies. I think what I've learned about Nike is that they don't, obviously, like if you're trying to get into like accounting or something very specific, then I think the degree matters a lot more. But for my role when I was networking, they were kind of like, we don't really look at the the type of degree that you have. We look at it as a way, like a frame of mind that you're bringing to your role, a way that you see the world. And I think for me in biology, it came out to be more of like an analytical skill set, good with numbers, good with organization, good with memorizing things. And that when I was networking, I didn't know that I wanted to be like end up in supply chain where I am now, but I think those skill sets lended itself to the type of work that I do now, which is a lot of work that's in Excel, a lot of pivot tables, a lot of modeling with formulas and whatnot, things that I did in my bio labs when I was in my undergrad. Yeah, I see you're nodding your head. Yeah, so a lot of that has come into my work. But for the most part, I would say I don't think that I was held back in any way, or I don't think that I maybe stood out because of the biology degree. It was definitely a conversation starter, but it's all about, especially at Nike, how you storytell your degree. And it doesn't have to like directly relate to the job you're applying to, as long as you can spin it in your own way. If you can market yourself, basically.
Yeah, and I would say from just the marketing and healthcare perspective, I certainly did not have a biology degree at all, and never thought that I would end up in the healthcare sector whatsoever. But it's definitely a combination of your traditional marketing roles of getting creative campaigns and planning and so on and so forth. But you also have day-to-day responsibilities of being the front runner and knowing what is coming out in the industry, either for urgent care in my line of work or dermatology. So you have to write, blogs and be up to date with what's going on and what the seasonality is of dermatology, for example, to promote different service lines and be able to be knowledgeable enough in the space to go back to your client and kind of recommend different campaigns and stuff based off of what you're seeing in the industry. So there is a component of also just level of research and understanding that industry as a whole. A lot of people also really enjoy client side versus actual advertising agency and working as the client of the dermatology firm or urgent care, where you're more in the weeds of that medical piece of it while also doing the marketing, but working with an advertising agency to roll a lot of that stuff out.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, both of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a great question. Any other questions for our guest speakers?
Are we allowed to like reach out to you guys on LinkedIn or anything like that? Do we have those, I don't know, emails or something?
Yeah. I just got a LinkedIn request from Alex too. So we
Absolutely.
very active.
I honestly, one of the things that I have really loved about Gonzaga and my family and my husband, everybody keeps saying is they're amazed at the connections that you have and you make through the Gonzaga network. When I moved to New York, I didn't know a single person. And then everybody that I met ended up being Gonzaga people, whether it was meeting people at watch parties or just people coming in and out for business. So happy to talk to anyone and everybody who wants to talk.
Well, for my part, I can say I created, with the input, of course, of our esteemed guest speakers, I created a set of bios for this year's speakers, and each of the bios comes with a LinkedIn, link to their profiles. So I posted that in my class. I assume most of your professors also posted on their class website, so you will be able to, or just reach out to me, Kurpes at Gonzaga. I can kind of help you to connect with those publicly available, right, links. Okay. Well, my students know that it's dangerous not to ask questions, because then I will kind of jump up and will ask a question. Okay, Richard has a question, but there's one question that I think on many people's minds, and let me just kind of verbalize it and see if that's of interest. Many students in the audience, I'm sure, are now in the process of applying for jobs or internships. What advice would you give them? what impresses you most when you are considering hiring someone. So basically advice for people who are looking for jobs. But first I want to give Richard a chance to ask his question.
I think, Lada, please go ahead and feel free to go ahead with that question. If there's time for me to ask a question, we'll get there, but this will get into some of the, a similar topic anyways. Thanks, Lada.
Well, that's very nice of you. So what advice would you give to people who are applying for jobs? Like if they appear in front of you applying for a job, how can they impress you? Or maybe something that worked for you in the past, like many of you mentioned, essentially marketing you as a professional, right? And again, I always like talking about everyone who is applying for a job is an organization of one, right? Like you are a subcontractor, company consisting of one person. How do you make that organization stand out? Xochitl, would you like to start? I see that you unmuted yourself just a minute ago.
I think one of the things, and some of the other panelists mentioned it, is just reaching out beforehand. So just having that initial contact before you even submit maybe the application, they have you top of mind, or they, loop back around and look at your resume or whatnot, or can just reach out and help you build that connection. So just showing that initiative, and then at the end, maybe a follow-up. Again, just to market yourself, keep yourself top of mind. So I think those would be two big ones for me, just the initial contact and then the follow-up at the end.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Excellent advice. Alex, what would you advise somebody who will kind of apply to you for a job?
Yeah, I would say a follow-up thank you email is big, just to show that you're still interested after the initial conversation. Honestly, depending on the position, a lot of times for entry level or positions that we're looking for just recent grads, it's less about the actual experience and more about the personality and the type of person that we're talking to. A lot of what you can do in a lot of these jobs can be teachable once you're hired, but you can't really teach a person's character. You can't really teach them to be a problem solver or a self-starter. So looking for those types of qualities of somebody who is willing to ask the right questions and may not have that exact real world experience at that time, but is willing to learn and start from the bottom, because a lot of people, I think, coming in are expecting to start not necessarily at the bottom, and they want to have a really cool job and not necessarily do the grunt work, but a lot of times that's where you have to start, and then you work your way up from there.
Mm-hmm. Excellent advice. Thank you so much, Alex. Blessings. As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, what advice would you give to people who apply for jobs? What qualities are you looking for?
Yeah, a lot of the ones that have been mentioned, one of the big ones is just show interest in the position, of course, and be willing to be teachable. But another big one is just the preparation, and not necessarily for the role itself. And this is from my experience being an employee and now employing people, is just preparation on your end. You're prepared for coming to stand in front of this panel and be asked some questions, and that interest is the big thing, and just the willingness to learn new things, because and especially my job experience in sales and even in engineering, it's dynamic, so you can't just be one skill. You have to have multiple skills and be willing to learn one or the other thing. That adds value.
Mm-hmm. I see. Would you say that people cannot expect to come with a set of skills that they acquired in college and just kind of expect to glide with these skills over the years? Do they have to continuously learn?
Definitely. So the set of skills is important. Bring something to the table, but be willing to maybe adapt it to this environment. You may be good in Excel. I remember one of the jobs, they just put me in front of an Excel sheet and just gave me some questions. So, just that knowledge of Excel helped me get the job, because, I could do these computations in Excel. And the rest followed after that. They didn't care much else. They're just like, okay, you can work with Excel, you're hired, you know, and then the rest just comes along. The skills are important, but then adapt them to the environment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Greg, kind of what advice would you give to current job seekers?
Yeah, I think a lot of what I was going to say was taken. All really good answers. I think to Blessing's point about preparation, I think one thing that for me stands out when I'm meeting with a student or someone who's interested in working at Nike is if they've done the preparation and the research about the company itself. So if you come to me, or if someone has clearly listened to the last Nike earnings call, or you're following like the stock price and like what's happening in the world that's related to Nike, I think that shows a genuine interest in the company. It shows that you want to be here. It shows that you've taken the time to prepare before you meet with someone. That makes a really good impression. And then I think secondly is, I think Alex was mentioning this, is just trying to understand your character, or almost like the way that you think or the way you process things, because that tells me something about how you work with other people and how you'll be as a teammate. I met actually on the Portland track a couple months ago, I met with a student who was telling me how she's really interested in like, I can't remember her two majors, but they were related, and she was seeing like a related cause and effect that she sees in the world between these two concentrations. And that to me was like, wow, she's like making these connections between two seemingly different areas of study. And she's really interested in asking these questions, and she wants to find a job that allows her to explore different causes and effects. And that to me is like, wow, that's really interesting. She's thinking critically. I think that's the type of person that I want to have on my team. And so just those types of personality traits, more than just hard skills like Excel or Tableau, I think those are all teachable, like what Alex said, but who you are as a person, I think, is probably more important, especially at Nike.
Well, thank you so much. I think those were wonderful questions, lots of great insights for our students. As you might have noticed, some of the attendants kind of have started leaving. That's because, we ran the full course of the scheduled time for the Mondays at noon. And other people might be kind of sitting on the edge of their seats because they need to leave for other classes. Please, join me in this round of applause to our, wonderful guest speakers. Thanks a lot for coming and sharing with us.